Completed in 1956 and designed to look like a stack of records on Hollywood and Vine, the Capitol Record Studio is one of the more recognizable recording joints in the industry. Known for their 8 echo chambers, 4 of them designed by Les Paul, it's been a very popular studio for recording artists, including the Beach Boys.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were...
Bob Seger recorded a couple albums there, and on one of them, he did half the tunes with the Silver Bullet Band and the other half with Muscle Shoals.
Just take those old...
We got the Steve Miller Band recording there.
People call me the Space Cowboy.
And Green Day. They also do a lot of production work there, like MTV's Behind the Music, things like that. Capitol Records, Hollywood and Vine. Have you ever wondered where this famous drum solo came from? So that was recorded at the Townhouse studio in London. Opened in 1978 under the direction of Richard Branson for Virgin Records. And they kind of stumbled upon that sound on a previous album when Phil Collins was playing drums for Peter Gabriel's solo album. And on one of the songs, the console mic that was just installed picked up the drum sound, and then Phil Collins took that and went full force on Face Value. A couple other artists to record there include XTC. And Asia recorded there. That's the Townhouse studio in London, closed 30 years later in 2008. Founded in 1958 by Tutti Camarada. Sunset Sound on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles is one of the most well-known recording studios in the music industry. Now, for the first 4 years, it was exclusive for Disney movies. So they recorded Bambi, 101 Dalmatians, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, shows like that. And then in 1962, they opened it up to bands and musicians, including Led Zeppelin and the Doobie Brothers. Most of Toto's albums are recorded there. Certainly Van Halen and Prince. Over 300 gold records have been recorded at Sunset Sound, still functioning and owned by the same folks. Check it out. Commissioned in 1968 by Jimi Hendrix. Electric Lady Studios in Greenwich Village pumped out some of the hottest albums throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The fun thing about this lot, I think, is that you can name the song within a few notes. So, can you name this song by AC/DC? Or Billy Idol? Or Kiss? Or The Clash? Or Hall & Oates? And even Foreigner. Eddie Kramer was the house engineer, and unfortunately, Hendrix died within a month of Electric Lady opening, but a great studio. If you wanted that big drum sound in the 80s, then you went to Little Mountain Studios in Vancouver to record. So, how did they do it? They put the drum set in the loading dock and recorded them that way for Loverboy. And for AC/DC. And for Aerosmith. And for Bryan Adams. And for Motley Crue. And for Bon Jovi. So many albums in the 80s, rock albums, were recorded there. Metallica's too. So I think they closed down in the 90s. Little Mountain Studios, big sound. Opened in 1968 in New York, The record plant probably has one of the coolest names for a recording studio. The next year, they also opened a plant in Los Angeles. Now, the neat thing about the record plant, it was the first studio to get rid of the sterile environment. They had cool things like a jacuzzi, a pool table, even a VIP room. Jimi Hendrix recorded there before Electric Lady Studios. Aerosmith's early albums were recorded at the record plant. Springsteen's masterpiece, Blondie's Breakout, and Eminem also recorded at the record plant. Still running today, primarily in LA, the record plant, like and sub. The second wave of recording studios came in the 1970s, and Westlake Audio became known for standardizing acoustic design. Founded by Tim Hidley, who also incidentally helped develop the car stereo in 1959, he opened the studio and they would record in a flat frequency, which then allowed them to move the audio from one studio to another to then get the same ambiance. They also had bass traps to make those beats thump. Some cool albums that were recorded there included Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill,
I know the version of me.
Van Halen 2, In Sync, The Weeknd. Now, Michael Jackson recorded most of his albums there, including Thriller, and also Danny Glover. That's Westlake Recording Studios. Built in 1922 by the Freemasons, this temple was converted in 1968 to become the Village Studios. Known for their collection of vintage mics and Oscar Peterson's Steinway, the Village has become a favorite in West LA. Lots of soundtracks, Toy Story 2, Shawshank, Ace Ventura, but also many bands like Steely Dan and the Smashing Pumpkins. Dr. Dre's debut,
Ain't nothing but a G thing, baby.
Fleetwood Mac, and Janet Jackson all recorded albums there. Pretty cool place. I think you can get a tour there of the Village Studios. Originally a 9-bedroom townhouse built in 1831, you heard that right, Abbey Road Studios, the world's oldest recording studio, opened its doors 100 years later in 1931. Originally the pre-EMI gramophone studios, Abbey Road is certainly known for recording the majority of the Beatles' works, but also had artists like Queen.
Is this the real life?
And Pink Floyd. And Cliff Richard.
I've had nothing but bad luck.
They're also known for recording soundtracks, The Hobbit, Harry Potter, Star Warses, and Raiders. Now Rogers runs the show over at Abbey Road. The current Henson Studios in La Brea was originally built over 100 years ago, back in 1917, by Charlie Chaplin. He bought the little spot to produce his own motion pictures, actually ran the studios until about the 50s. It changed hands a few times through the 50s and 60s until 1967, when Herb Alpert of Tijuana Brass fame and Jerry Moss founded A&M Records. Now, A&M took it over in 67, really built it out through the 60s and 70s, became a hot spot for recording. Henson Studios bought it in 2000 and continues the film and music tradition. Now, we often talk about albums that were recorded at certain studios. They're also used for mixing and mastering, like U2's Rattle and Hum and Prince's Controversy. That's Henson Studios. If a band wanted to get away to a tropical island instead of recording their albums in LA or New York, then they could go to the Bahamas. Built in 1977 in Nassau, Compass Point Studios was built by Island Records president Chris Blackwell. And he had a unique setup where he had all in-house artists, musicians, producers, engineers, and they were the Compass Point All-Stars. A lot of bands went there to get a certain sound, including Robert Palmer.
Simply irresistible.
And the Talking Heads.
Burning down the house.
B-52s recorded there, as did the Tom Tom Club, and even the Rolling Stones. Unfortunately, they shut down around 2010, but Compass Point was a favorite. The 1960s seemed like the golden era of recording studios. And another one that was built during that decade was Paramount Studios. Now, it was built by the Brolin family. Now, you might know James Brolin. He was an actor with a contract at Paramount at the time, and his brother Brian was an aspiring engineer, mixer, working with his teenage friend Richie Valens. And so James actually encouraged his brother to open the studio. Some of the acts that have recorded amazing albums there include 21 Pilots.
My name's Blurry Facing Back.
Justin Timberlake.
I'm bringing sexy back.
Nelly Furtado. Thelma Houston back in the 70s. They also had Pink, NWA, Brandy, Coolio, Snoop, and Eminem.
2 trailer park girls go round the outside.
That's Paramount Studios. I think it's on Santa Monica Boulevard. Originally a Con Edison power relay station, the power station in New York was the place where a lot of debut or breakout albums were recorded, including Billy Squier and Bon Jovi.
She's a little runaway.
And because Nile Rodgers of Chic worked there, David Bowie and Madonna. And old-timers like the Rolling Stones even recorded there. And guess what? The Power Station recorded at the Power Station. Definitely a historic music studio, a recording studio, I should say. They also do a lot of musicals there, like Hamilton was recorded there. The Power Station at Berkeley, NYC.